Hi guys, and welcome to my review of the Dell Alienware 15 Revision 2, which means it already packs Intel's newest quad-core Skylake CPU, an Nvidia GeForce GTX 980M, 16GB of RAM, a super fast NVMe SSD, and already USB Type-C 3.1. All this sounds like a super high-end package that also comes with quite some high-end price. But if it's still worth that, we'll see in my full review, so let's damn it. Okay, as always, let's start off with the design and build quality. First of all, yes, the lid does flex a little bit, but I don't see this as an issue because the rest has been built very robust and very solid. The lid only bends a little bit, but no distortion of the screen, and otherwise this device feels very substantial. As you can see, solid plastic on the bottom as well, some nice thicker rubber feet that give it a little bit more room for breathing here, which is quite important, and that has been done quite nice. Of course, it is a little bit bigger, a little bit thicker and heavier, 3.1 kilograms, but therefore the cooling is quite good, and I will talk about that later. Here we have the ports, port for the charging, lock, 2 USB 3.0, one for the microphone and for the headphone. On the front we have some LED strips. On the right side we have the SD card reader. The whole SD fits in, which is quite nice. USB Type-C 3.1 with Thunderbolt 3. USB 3.0 with always on. Gigabit Ethernet. And on the back we can see the full-size HDMI and along with the docking mechanism for the desktop graphics card if you decide to get that as well. So overall, good amount of ports. It feels very solid. It's a little bit thicker, as I said, but therefore it gets the job done quite nicely. And here also you can see the palm rest, very nice soft touch plastic, feels very good. No real complaints here about other than being a bit more on the heavy and bulky side. What do I have to say about the keyboard? Let's go into Windows first. The keyboard itself, nice layout, as you can see, no chiclet style though. The great thing is we have some software, some additional one here where you can customize the lighting of all the areas, set different colors. You have, I guess it's multi RGB because I could set pretty much all the colors that I wanted to. Very customizable. Also good lighting here, it's bright enough. I could turn off the light and you will be able to see it. It's still a little bit bright, but the lighting itself is absolutely fine. Also the trackpad that does light up, so that has been quite nice. We have some media buttons and all that. We don't have a function lock, but they are for macro keys. The design itself is quite nice, and this is actually one issue that we will see quite often. The graphics driver from Intel just force closes. This happens quite often, but I will talk about that later in the software. Other than that, the keyboard is really, really nice because a nice amount of treble, very soft, and it's also, as you can hear, super quiet, great tactile feedback. For me it was a little bit harder to type on because I'm usually used to a chiclet style keyboard, but otherwise once you get used to it, or if you like this non-island style keyboard, it definitely gets a great job done, no problems here at all. As for the trackpad, it is a little bit on the smaller side, but therefore the traction or the friction is quite nice. The buttons work very well, also very quiet, feel good, and multi-finger gestures get accepted. Absolutely nice, no problems here at all, very precise. All this has been done really, really good. So now let's take a look at the display, and this is something where I'm definitely a little bit disappointed because in theory it's quite nice because we have a 1080p matte one, which is a good choice, but the choice of the panel they had here is definitely not that great because as you can see, just some minor adjustments that I needed to get the white to be halfway decent because out of the box it is terribly yellow, way too yellow, so it needed some adjustment, but therefore you can also see because if I changed the white point, it also got dimmer and it's already way too dim out of the box. The maximum brightness is absolutely not the greatest one. We are at 100% and in a bright environment it's already maybe not even enough. If you play at night or with the lights off, it should be okay, but it's definitely a quite dim panel, which is disappointing. With 1080p and matte, it's also not really the sharpest one, but that's not that much of an issue. I got okay with that. Sharpness was fine, but definitely not the greatest one. I've seen better 1080p displays, and the white point, as I said, it was very yellow. The black therefore is quite okay, deep enough, not super deep, but therefore very uniform. No problems here at all. The colors, as you can maybe see, are quite dull. They just don't pop. They don't have a big color gamut. contrast is okay, but overall it's definitely quite a weak panel. I was quite disappointed to see something like that on a high-end device like this. There is also a 4K version of this laptop available, and I guess that one just has to be a lot better. The 1080p display though isn't. Okay, let's check the sound and see how it performs in this department. We have stereo front-facing speakers, they are here, and as you heard, they sound quite nice and rich, quite full, nice amount of bass, and we have some additional software here from Sound Blaster available where you can have an equalizer, crystallizer, you can turn off the bass, and you have a lot more options, and this is all good and fine. The sound is good. The only complaint I have is the low maximum volume that just wasn't satisfying at all times. It was good enough, barely, but often I just wanted to get at least 20% higher. Wasn't the case, but yeah, that's just the one thing that you have to live with. Okay, now let's get to the performance. 6700HQ here, 980M, an NVMe SSD, 16GB of RAM, so the total package definitely sounds already great. The SSD itself is really fast in terms of read speeds, but the write speeds are quite disappointing with just 300, and we have an NVMe from Samsung that should perform a lot better here in terms of write, so that must have been quite bad optimization from Dell's side here. The read speeds and write speeds for the HDD are fine, no real complaints here. I don't really think I have to show off normal tasks because all those get handled just fine, absolutely great. And I used this laptop for my main video editing machine the last 2 weeks and I was absolutely satisfied with it. Great for rendering, very fast with the 980M and the CUDA cores, absolutely great for Adobe Premiere. Rendering was just fine. The 6700 performed very well. And for the gaming, I did a dedicated gaming video that I have also, you can just check that. Just for short, 1080p with maxed out specs or settings worked absolutely fine once you have the power plugged in. It was smooth, pretty much 50-60 frames respectable at all times. If you take off the plug, let's say 10 frames in average, you get less, but still absolutely playable. Maybe you tweak the settings a little bit and it should be fine, but I would say 1080p max settings or at least very high settings should be no problem. Overall flow, if you just want it for office tasks, of course, it's already a little bit too much. Now, the battery. Let's check that. A full charge needs about 2 hours and 10. The 69 milliwatt hours battery does quite a fine job. In heavier use, you could drain it, I guess, in quite a short time, because I tried something like rendering on battery and I think in half an hour it drained 45%. That is a heavy scenario, as you can see, like 1 hour and 20. But usually in normal use, like writing something or watching media and all that, expect about 4 to 4.5 hours. This should be possible. With heavier use, of course, less. Those 5.5 hours are already an extreme on the higher side. I wouldn't really expect that much. So I would say let's take an average of about 4 hours, 4.5. With heavier use, of course, maybe something closer to 2 hours. Now, about the software. The only thing that I already mentioned that I have an issue with is the Intel driver, because especially in the Edge browser I got a lot of times this Intel graphics driver force closing. I had this on the Dell Inspiron as well. So I think it is a Windows 10 Edge and Intel driver software, not so much of this device, because I've seen it even on my desktop PC. So it seems to be a common issue. I hope to get fixed soon. It wasn't a really annoying thing, but it was there. Otherwise, in terms of Dell software, you get the usual bloat app that can be uninstalled, and that's it pretty much. Now, let's talk about heat and noise. In terms of heat, if you have it, for example, on your bed, as I did once, it gets very, very hot beneath the device, which is a little bit extreme, but that was because I did block all the ventilation. But it had no impact on the noise levels and it had no impact on the performance. That one was already fine all the times. Noise, no real coil whine. I didn't hear anything. Noise levels of the fans are absolutely nice as well, because they are audible at all times, as you can maybe hear, but I don't think you will be able to. If I go a bit closer, that is a total non-issue. absolutely subtle, and in normal use I didn't even notice it at one point, because you get so used to the very subtle, very soothing sound that it's absolutely great. Of course, under full load it gets louder, but even then, very subtle and very even fan noise. I didn't have an issue. Of course, with the speakers, and if you plan on gaming on the speakers, it's too loud to enjoy the sound. But if you play with your headphones on, it should be no problem at all. I didn't see heat as an issue. I had no throttling, with maybe a little bit with GPU and CPU on the full load, but I didn't notice anything for games or so. And the noise levels, respecting the power here, was absolutely fine. I expected it to be way louder, especially during rendering. It didn't almost get any louder at all. So that's it for my detailed part. But I think I'm ready to cross the line. Okay guys, I really don't know what to do anymore, because I think I've tried this take about 50 times and the number of failed attempts will be down there. I will see that later in the file name, because I've tried it way too often and I'm close to getting crazy. So let's try it one more time, and I will try to speak very slowly, not to completely mess up again. So recap. Design and build quality. It's big, heavy and bulky, but I don't think it's meant to be portable anyways, because of this quite hefty power brick you will have to carry around, and that's why I personally see it more as of a desktop replacement anyways. Therefore though, you get a really nice, substantial and well built machine with a great amount of ports already with USB Type-C, a great typing experience, a really well done keyboard with nice coloring options and a precise trackpad. So they did a good job here, just a little bit on the bigger side. The display though definitely is disappointing, because just not bright enough, colors are a little bit dull. The black is good enough, but the white point out of the box was just way too warm. Can calibrate that, but then the screen gets even dimmer, so the overall display experience just wasn't really great, and I would definitely go for the 4K screen. That just has to be better. The sound experience would have been really good if louder, because the sound balance is nice, a little bit of bass, nice mids and clear highs, just a lack of maximum volume by about 10 or 20%. It should be fine for a TV show or YouTube video, but not for gaming or anything like that. And since we are talking about the gaming performance is absolutely top notch. I would say 1080p with high to max settings with about 60 frames on the power supply should be no problem, and on the battery, let's say about 10 frames less. For video editing, it was also very well suited. I could do all my video editing very fast and very efficient. Great. The SSD though on the right side was a little bit slower, but in normal use it didn't really make a difference. Battery life was totally acceptable and more than adequate for the power of this device, because we have a quad core, we have a 980M, and therefore 4 to 4.5 hours of use are absolutely fine. With heavier use, maybe 2 to 2.5. Not that bad. Heat and noise. Heat, absolutely fine. It did get warm towards the keyboard side, but never that much that I would have had an issue with that. And the noise level was actually quite good. In idle or lower end tasks, it was very subtle and I didn't notice it and I didn't bother about it at all. And even under heavier load, especially video editing, it stayed actually quite quiet all the time. And just when you did some gaming, then it got louder, but even then, I would say it was totally fine. I had no issue with that. Software, a little bit of a few issues here. I had like 5 or 6 blue screens, which was very disappointing to see, always a different reason. I had the issue with the Intel driver force closing a few times. Other than that, it was fine. So with a few updates, this could get fixed, and I think it's more of a Windows 10 issue anyways. This brings me to the end. How's the value of this device? And I gotta say, the device definitely is very expensive, but you make maybe a little bit of a few compromises too much, because the screen just isn't the greatest. The sound is okay if you use the headphones, is less of an issue, and it's big. But I'm okay with being big and heavy. not myself, I mean the device, but therefore have quite a good quiet cooling. And that's why I think the device is definitely not bad, but a little bit priced too high. If you get it on a good price, on a good deal, it should be quite a nice device. But first of all, check the screen or go for the 4K display, because that's my main issue. The rest was on a really high level, and if you get a good value out of it, I don't see any issues recommending it. As it is, this unit, maybe not so much. And I finally finished that take. This will be the final one. Oh man. If you liked it, please give me a thumbs up. Subscribe to my channel if you want more of this with maybe a lot less messing up. Okay, until next time, bye.